Greetings, everyone. If you're watching this message, it means I'm probably dead. And Madeline did it, because you should always beware of the quiet ones. In any case, I wouldn't want you to go a day without extra special government notes, so I've gone ahead and recorded today's lecture. Now, because you're seeing this in the far-off space future that is Friday, and I'm recording this in the far-off distant past that is Tuesday, I'm guessing where we're going to be on Friday. So there's entirely possible that we have a gap in the notes. In which case, I know you're probably going to have to deal with this, so just leave some space in your notes if that's the case. However, if we're lucky, you're right where we should be, and you're on the back page of the outline looking at letter E, Benefits of Federalism. But again, if you're not, feel free to cry, gnash your teeth, and so forth, and rend your towels, and whatever you need to do. But we're going to pick up at Benefits of Federalism, E. Now, the way this is going to work is I'm going to attempt to lecture in my own inimitable style. I will try to repeat important words and terms a couple of times, but it's entirely possible I will forget. But feel free to fast forward, rewind, and so forth. And in addition, I am going to try and post this to YouTube so that you could always go ahead and rewatch it over the weekend or something if you need to recopy your notes, or if you're incredibly bored, or you can't sleep and you need something to drone you to sleep. Either way, email me and I will send you the link to the YouTube video, or actually I might just, send everyone the link to the video. Either way, you'll get a link to the video somehow. If I don't send it to you, feel free to email me and I'll send it to you. But let's go ahead and get going. So if you haven't done so already, please take out your notebooks. I'll wait. Ooh, let's look at this one. Let's see, today in history. This will be the 7th, October 7th. October 7th. Oh, apparently October 7th. Wait, what? October 7th and 2001 is apparently the day that we began the assault on Afghanistan, according to my This Day in History book. Fascinating. Things I didn't know. Okay, if you haven't taken out your notebooks by now, then you're just going to have to go on and deal with that, because we're going to go ahead and go on with the notes. So you're talking about the benefits of federalism, the three major things that are brought up when we talk about why federalism is a good idea between the national government and the state governments, starting with competition. The idea of competition as a positive thing is that it forces the states to compete with each other for limited resources. Again, it forces the states to compete with each other for limited resources. And one more time, it forces the states to compete with each other for limited resources. The idea is, and this is a very capitalist idea in general, isn't it? That competition makes everyone better. So rather than the states getting fat and lazy on resources like tax money and so forth, you're making them compete to get more. So for example, the federal government might say, the states that have the highest percentage of college graduates get an extra amount of money for their education program. So that forces the states to compete. Can they get their graduate levels up high enough to get the money? Or there was one a couple of years ago where it was states that came up with the best clean energy program would get a certain amount of money. So the logic is, by forcing the states to compete with each other, they will in turn produce the best product, rather than wasting the money on states that don't need it or can't be bothered and so forth. However, competition has a couple of problems. One is the idea of the race to the bottom. The race to the bottom is sometimes also referred to as smokestack chasing. In this case, the idea is that the states get hyper-competitive with each other to the detriment of all. Again, the idea here is that it's called the race to the bottom or smokestack chasing. Both terms can apply here. The idea is that the states get hyper-competitive with each other to the point of the detriment of all. The states get hyper-competitive with each other to the detriment of all. The idea is that the states get so competitive that they lose sight of the final goal. For example, states will oftentimes compete with each other for details and so forth. For example, jobs, tax money, things like that. So for example, North Carolina has a film industry in Wilmington. We would like to get movies to film here, and so in order to get them to film here, we might offer them tax credits and so forth. So we might say, if you film here, you don't have to pay any taxes whatsoever, and we'll give you free workers. That would be a great thing that we'll do for you. Of course, other states want those same jobs. So Georgia might say, come film in Atlanta. Not only do you not have to pay any taxes and we'll give you free workers, we'll build you an airport so all of your stuff can fly in. And so North Carolina has to respond with, well, no taxes, free workers, we'll build you an airport, and we'll give you a fleet of cars for your film. In this competition back and forth, the logic is that we're trying to get jobs for our state, but the problem is, A, we're doing damage to our economy because we're giving away so much stuff for the jobs that we're going to end up losing in the deal. And B, at the end of the day, it's still, we're competing with another state. So we're taking money out of their mouths and jobs away from them. So at the end of the day, is that really a good thing? They say that the race to the bottom ends up helping companies out more than it does states because they can play off of each other. You heard about this probably with North Carolina and things like, I'm trying to remember who it was. There was somebody up in the Research Triangle area, it might have been Google, who was going to build a huge server farm up near Raleigh, but then they decided they wouldn't because they got a better offer from Kentucky. And so, if we don't try to match that and race to the bottom to get to start giving them gifts and so forth, then we're not going to get the jobs. And again, at the end of the day, we're all part of the same big country, so is it really a benefit if one of the states ends up kneecapping the others just to get a few more factories in their state? So that's competition, both the upside and the downside. The next one, the idea of access. The benefit of federalism is that it gives the average person more access to government, more avenues for success. It gives the average person more access to the government and more avenues for success. Again, it gives the average person more access to government, and I forgot the rest of what I was saying. Sorry, it's late. What do you want? In any case, rewind. You could probably figure out what I was saying. But what I was trying to get at is, federalism gives you more access to government and more avenues for success. So, the logic here is, under federalism, if you're not having success at the state level, you can try the national level, and vice versa. If you're not having luck at the national level, you can try the state level. Take the civil rights movement, for example. Southern states during the 1950s and 60s just weren't that interested in giving African Americans equal rights, and so efforts to push through laws at the state level were met with heavy resistance, if not outright ludicrous assumptions that just weren't going to happen. So instead, they found greater success at the national level by having the U.S. Supreme Court make decisions, by having the president make decisions. They found success that they couldn't find at the state level. And the reverse is true as well. Gay marriage proponents, the people who wanted gay marriage, weren't having any luck at the national level because of things like the Defense of Marriage Act and so forth. So instead, they started work at the state level instead. And they got about 7 or 8 different states to rule in their favor. And once they started to get the states to rule in their favor, that got it moved up to the U.S. Supreme Court, which then issued the ruling that made gay marriage legal nationwide. But in both cases, if you're not having success one direction, you can have success with the other. So because of our system of federalism, it opens up more avenues and more chances for the average person to find more luck. And finally, flexibility. Federalism gives the states and the national government more flexibility when it comes to making decisions. Decisions about money and everything. Oh, okay, that was weird. Everything just sort of blinked there. You might have lost some of that, but I think we're back. I think we're live. The camera light is back on green. Flexibility. The idea here is that it gives the states and the national government more flexibility with what to do with resources, both things like money and decision-making and so forth. For example, if the U.S. government makes a law about, say, the age at which you can drive a tractor, well, that's going to be really useful in some states like Kansas or Oklahoma, but New York not so much because there aren't that many people trying to drive tractors in downtown Manhattan. So there's no real point to having a national law. Instead, let the states do it. The states have the opportunity to be more flexible. The states know what they need, and so they can use the resources better. So this is why states prefer things, as we'll talk about, like block grants, where they just get a sack of money and they get to figure out what to do with it. So that's the upside of flexibility, is that by letting the states figure out what they need on their own, rather than having the national government tell them what to do, it allows for a better and more balanced response. Because again, they know what they need and they know what the best way to do it. The other thing is, remember we talked about, Congress is slow. That's pretty much the end of that one. Congress is incredibly slow. And so sometimes states have to do things, have to be flexible to make decisions because Congress just isn't going to do it. Take, for example, what was going on in Florida with the Zika virus. Congress was bottled up and didn't know what to do about it. They couldn't make any decisions. So Florida took it on their own to start making decisions about things like, mosquito spraying, public health, and so forth, because Congress took too long. The downside of flexibility is that it also creates a certain amount of instability, particularly in things like the legal system. The example your book makes is marijuana possession carries a wildly different penalty depending upon what state you're in. In some states, there's a mandatory jail time. Other states, it's a simple fine. And even that amount, like in some states, it's several $1,000s, like $20,000. California, I think it was like $500. And so as a result, it becomes really difficult to predict when your behavior is and is not okay. Or what the punishment is going to be. So there is a downside to flexibility, which is that it creates a little bit of instability, particularly again in things like the legal system and so forth. So that takes care of letter E, the benefits of federalism. Next up we'll be doing is federalism over time, but we're going to take a short break and then we'll pick up with federalism over time. So small pause there and then click on to the next video.